What is up, guys, and welcome back to another video. And today we are going over 10 things you need to know before watching Spider-Man Far From Home. Let's get right on the list with number 10. Peter Parker is taking a break as Spider-Man. No, this is not like Spider-Man 2, where the immense amount of stress that comes with being a superhero causes Peter to question why he continues to put himself through so much pain. Instead, Spider-Man Far From Home will focus on Peter wanting to take a brief break from the superhero world, which is completely understandable considering that he's still grieving over the loss of Iron Man. Plus, anyone who's been gone for 5 years after turning into dust would probably want to spend some time recovering from all the emotional distress. Based off of the trailer for the movie, Peter hopes to finally relax and have fun on a well-deserved vacation with his close friends Ned and MJ. The reason why the title of the movie is Far From Home is because it will mostly take place in various countries across Europe. Nothing can compare to watching Spider-Man swing through New York City and climb along the tallest skyscrapers. But it definitely feels like a breath of fresh air to see him fighting bad guys in Europe, since that's never been done in the previous movies. Of course, Spider-Man can't seem to catch a break, so expect his vacation to be short-lived as Nick Fury plans on recruiting him to deal with a new threat in Europe. Number 9. The connection between Endgame and Spider-Man Far From Home. When building up an extended universe, you have to make sure that what happened in one movie doesn't contradict what happened in another movie. This leaves many people wondering, how exactly are they going to move forward with Spider-Man's story while addressing some of the events that took place in Infinity War and Endgame? Since Far From Home begins right after Endgame, Peter will not only deal with the grief loss of Tony, but he must also come to terms with the for 5 years. Originally, the Russo brothers planned on having Aunt May survive the snap so she could have an emotional reunion with Peter, but John Watts decided that it would benefit his movie if she ended up being a victim of the snap. If Aunt May did survive, the movie would have to explain how much she missed him, which was an issue because Watts felt like it was important to spend more time developing the future than dwelling on the past. In regards to the other characters in the Spider-Man universe, Endgame already confirmed that Ned died from the snap when they showed that him and Peter are still in high school. Also, it's safe to assume that MJ and Flash also got dusted, even though it hasn't been confirmed yet because they are a part of the school trip to Europe. Number 8. Spider-Man feels pressure to replace Iron Man. After watching how Endgame ended, many fans found themselves asking the burning question, what's next for the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Though Captain America and Iron Man have always been seen as the stars of the MCU, fans are beginning to accept the fact that it's time for other superheroes such as Spider-Man, Captain Marvel, Black Panther, and Doctor Strange to show the world how great they truly are. Still, it may feel a little weird to have a universe without a clear leader, especially since fans have been so used to viewing Iron Man as the true face of the MCU and Captain America as the leader of the Avengers. Because Spider-Man is arguably the most iconic superhero in Marvel, fans are expecting him to be the one who carries the MCU into its next phase. Not only do fans think that Spider-Man deserves to fulfill the leadership role in the MCU, but it seems like even Marvel is hoping that he can become their next big star based off of some of the dialogue in the Far From Home trailer. In the beginning of the trailer, Spider-Man is teased to replace Iron Man when Happy says that Tony wouldn't have made that sacrifice if he didn't know that Peter was still going to be around to protect people. Towards the end of the trailer, it becomes even more evident that Spider-Man feels the pressure to replace Iron Man when he claims that the world desperately needs the next Iron Man. Number 7. Spider-Man's bond with Happy Hogan becomes stronger. If you're planning on watching Spider-Man Far From Home but have never seen any of the Iron Man movies, then you may have been a little confused when you saw Happy Hogan occupying a decent amount of time in the trailer. Happy is known for being one of Tony's closest friends and his personal chauffeur, who formerly worked as his bodyguard and head of security of Stark Industries. He may not have been an essential character in Homecoming, but definitely expect him to have a bigger role in Far From Home, especially since he's going to help Peter go through the grieving process of losing Tony. As explained by the director of the movie, John Watts, Happy has always been seen as a character who can only exist in a world with Iron Man, so he was hoping to change that by creating a strong bond between him and Peter. Basically, he wants Happy to go from an Iron Man supporting character to a supporting character for the entire MCU. Also, the trailer featured Happy flirting with Aunt May, which may imply that Peter is going to view him as a father figure and that he's going to stick around in the Spider-Man universe for the future movies. Number 6, Nick Fury and Maria Hill are reprising their S.H.I.E.L.D. role. Nick Fury has made so many appearances in the MCU that it's even gotten to the point where it just feels a little weird to watch a Marvel movie without seeing him. It doesn't matter if he's playing the supporting character like he did in The Winter Soldier or one of the main characters like he did in Captain Marvel. Samuel L. Jackson has mastered the craft of making Fury's presence felt. Because he has become such an important character in the MCU, it's no surprise that Spider-Man Far From Home will continue the cycle of including him in Marvel movies. When asked to describe Fury's relationship with Peter, Watts explained that Tony is a cool supportive dad, whereas Fury is the mean stepdad. He goes on to say that he's always wanted to pair up an idealistic teenager like Peter with a jaded super spy like Fury. Though Fury sees so much potential in Peter, he can't help but get frustrated at him for being preoccupied with his high school problems. Also, Kobe Smulders will reprise her role as Maria Hill, which means that she's upgrading from only having cameos in Infinity War and Endgame to being a supporting character in Far From Home. Number 5, the Elementals will appear as secondary villains. Most people are aware that Jake Gyllenhaal will be playing the classic Spider-Man villain, Mysterio, but some of them might not be familiar with the other villains that are threatening to interrupt Peter's vacation. The Elementals are 4 immortal, extra-dimensional humanoids with power over natural forces. Hellfire possesses power over fire. Hydrogen possesses power over water, Magnum possesses power over earth, and Zypher possesses power over air. In the comics, they ruled a kingdom on Earth before the rise of Atlantis and were banished to another dimension when they tried to conquer Egypt. When the Elementals eventually made their way back to the modern Earth, they became Captain Marvel's villains, which is why many fans were surprised to see them in the Far From Home trailer. Some fans believe that the Elementals could be a reinvention of the Amazing Spider-Man villains. For example, Magnum would represent Sandman, Hydrogen would represent Hydra Man, and Hellfire would represent Molten Man. Because one of Mysterio's favorite tricks is to create illusions of terrifying monsters that only he can defeat so he can play the hero and win the fame he thinks he deserves, many fans predict that he's playing the same trick with the Elementals. Number 4, the introduction of the multiverse in the MCU. As soon as the trailer was released, fans were extremely surprised when Mysterio mentioned that he was a part of another Earth because they didn't expect Marvel to introduce a concept that could leave the general audience confused. What makes Marvel so successful is that they are able to make movies that anyone can enjoy, even if you never read a comic book, so having different universes may be a little too much to handle. If you're a hardcore Marvel fan, this is probably the best MCU news you've ever heard because it can be used to explain how the Avengers can meet other characters from the Fox and Sony universe such as X-Men, Deadpool, and Venom. Fans will easily be able to understand why the Avengers live in a world where mutants don't exist and why the X-Men live in a world where the Avengers don't exist. With the acquisition of Fox, there is no reason why Disney shouldn't bring Marvel's second most popular team to the MCU. Some fans even came up with theories explaining how Into the Spider-Verse can possibly be a universe within the multiverse, but it's highly unlikely that Marvel would try to connect an animated movie to a live-action movie. Number 3, the MCU is part of Earth 616. In a sneak peek that showed a conversation between Spider-Man and Mysterio, fans learned that the MCU is a part of Earth 616, which may seem like a random number to casual fans, but it's instantly recognizable to those who love comics. Earth 616 is the primary continuity in which most Marvel comic titles take place, created for the purpose of extending the universe and giving the writers the power to write about any universe they want. To use an example from Spider-Man's comic book lore, the Peter Parker story we've grown accustomed to, the whole biting by a radioactive spider and the death of Uncle Ben, happens in 616. Miles Morales, who becomes Spider-Man when Peter dies, lived in an alternate timeline known as 1610, where many of the same characters exist, but have different personalities or powers. Continuities besides Earth 616 would include the Age of Apocalypse, which is an alternate reality ruled by the mutant god Apocalypse. Then you have the House of M, a reality dominated by mutants. There's even an Ultiverse, which is a reality containing what-if scenarios that would tell stories such as what would happen if Aunt May died instead of Uncle Ben, and what if Peter became the Punisher. So it's going to open up a lot of possibilities. Number 2, Mysterio Comes from Earth 833. Right after Mysterio mentions that Peter comes from Earth 616, he reveals that he's a part of Earth 833, which is nowhere nearly as important as the other universes that were previously mentioned in the video, but it's still interesting to understand why the writers decided to choose that specific universe. Earth 833 is a parallel reality where it wasn't Peter who was bitten by the radioactive spider, it was a man named William Braddock. Rather than becoming Spider-Man, the British superhero was recruited by the multi-dimensional Captain Britain Corps. He left his own universe in order to become an interdimensional hero, taking up the codename known as Spider UK, which goes perfectly with the Far From Home since the majority of the movie will take place in Europe. For a while, Spider UK was the only survivor of his universe until he later died at the hands of Verna. This could possibly mean nothing, or it could mean that Mysterio is the only survivor of his universe and he's just pretending like he doesn't know that. And number 1, the origin of Mysterio. In the comics, Mysterio, also known as Quentin Beck, is a former movie stuntman, actor, and special effects designer who turned to crime after becoming convinced that there was no future for him in Hollywood. Though he doesn't actually have any superpowers, Mysterio is really good at illusions and perfectly plays the part of a wizard to the public. Marvel has done a good job at keeping his origin in the movie a secret, so fans decided to come up with their own theories, some of which include Mysterio being an older version of Peter Parker, while other theories claim that he's playing an alternate version of Uncle Ben. The Far From Home trailer may have made it seem like Mysterio is a hero, but do not be fooled. He's one of those villains who constantly lies in order to trick people into thinking he's a good guy. Some fans have even theorized that Mysterio made up the entire multiverse to cover up the fact that he was the one who brought the elementals to Europe. In the post-Thanos world, it's not a stretch to think many people would easily be tricked into thinking multiverses are possible, considering that half of the world's population disintegrated into dust and then came back 5 years later. Anyways, that is it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope I educated you enough to walk into this movie pretty comfortable knowing some of the basics. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe for more. I'll see you all in the next video.